I'm going to say it. I really like Chill. Maybe there was something we could bring back to make Mei feel better again. Overwatch balance is definitely a contentious topic recently, and really always. And I want to just highlight some of my favorite changes and also some of my least favorite changes that they've ever made. Now, this is going to be on a character-specific basis, so it's going to be any kind of change that they make to one certain character, one of their abilities or something like that, that I find to be either really cool or really frustrating or something like that. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not going to be about, like, reworked abilities or new abilities or stuff like that. It's going to be about changes that they make to existing abilities that either really make them super fun or much more engaging, or maybe make them not as cool or great or anything like that. So I'm very quickly going to go through this because I just got access to the 2xKO alpha and I really, really want to try that. So let's go ahead and start with a good. So this is going to be the first good. We're going to go over to Junker Queen here. I think that Junker Queen has a really well-rounded kit, but it was really hard to get a lot of value up close initially. But they didn't want to, like, make her risk reward style or like kind of risky play style all the way gone while they buffed her. So this axe change where you get your cooldown back faster depending on how many people you hit, I think is perfect. I think that this is a really rewards you much better for going for this risky. I mean, like, look how long it takes for the axe to come out, right? That takes a really long time. So you're rewarded much better if you're able to hit a bunch of people, right? It discourages people or other teams from clumping up against you. It makes Junker Queen much more viable into other brawl comps. Even though she doesn't have great direct damage mitigation, she has the threat of all this damage and sustain. I think it works really, really well. It is super duper fun. Just being able to, like, loop axes. I mean, like, look at this. I can just, like, oh, here they're back again. Hit him again. If you hit 4 and you can just keep hitting the button, I know we've all seen that super clip where he builds ult in, like, 30 seconds from that patch, like, a year ago. It's super fun. I think this was one of the best changes. And honestly, this puts Junker Queen, like, her balance doesn't really need to be tuned that much any direction, because I think this keeps her super viable. So I think that was a really, really good change. Here's a change. I forgot to tell you about this. These aren't just Overwatch 2 changes. These are actually going to be some changes from Overwatch 1 that if you're new to Overwatch 2, you might not know this. So I'm going to show you something here with Wrecking Ball, and this is going to be a bad change, and this is kind of controversial. I think it's a little... It's something that they removed from Ball that I actually quite liked and I thought was kind of cool. But I think most people assume it was just like quality of life change, although I kind of disagree. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to throw my mines just kind of out in the open. Now, you may realize that, you know, all my mines, they went down, some of them are up top, but they're all on the ground level, right? They're all above something on the ground. This is not how mines used to work. I may put a clip in here to show you something, but how mines used to work is that they would get stuck on any surface that they touch. So if a mine got close enough to a wall, let's say right here, it would stick out from the wall instead of just from the ground. A lot of people call this a quality of life change because mines would very often just get stuck on some random pieces of geometry and you wouldn't get your full minefield on the ground. And of course, yeah, sure, that is definitely valid. But to me, I think this actually gets rid of some of the synergy with Ball, because I thought it was, like, really cool to be like, okay, so there's a lot of characters that can escape minefield, but what if I throw the minefield on the wall above them and then I slam them up into the mines, right? So that bot would have died because he got slammed into a mine. That is really fun and really interesting to me. And also, it puts a big limitation on where you can put the mines effectively. So, you know, I wouldn't get as an effective spread if I tried to do them here as opposed to here. Nowadays, you can just kind of put mines wherever you not have to think about it. But I did really like when you had to, like, really think about the geometry of the map and where you're going to put mines, because it also puts some counterplay. It's like, all right, we know Ball is going to want to do a minefield. If we play in this tight corridor with a lot of walls, he's not going to be able to slam on us and do the minefield. He's going to have to slam and then mines, or he's going to have to roll through and use mines, right? It actually limits his options. I think it adds a little bit more counterplay to mines. at least the initial drop of it. I think it was more fun that way. I understand why it was changed, but I'm old and I like the way it used to be. Okay. Anyways, next for our next good one, let's talk about Baptiste. Now, Bap is definitely one of those characters that people like to call bloated or really good, especially in Overwatch 1. And some people find him somewhat boring. I don't, and it's because of this change. You see how much that does? When I hit a direct hit, it does 70. When I hit the ground, it only does 50, right? This was not the case in Overwatch 1, at least when he launched. He just did a flat 60, I think it was. I don't know if his numbers are actually 70 and 50 right now. But he did a flat percent if you did a direct hit. If you did it on the ground, it was going to do the exact same thing, right? That made BAP really boring. You never ever had to think about it. You just shoot the ground, you know, keep going, right? All of that good stuff. Adding an extra, actually making it weaker to hit the ground and adding an extra incentive to direct hit makes BAP way more fun, in my opinion, and brings his skill ceiling up way higher. Because now you're playing this minigame of trying to either maximize your damage and go for riskier shots that may not hit, or try to make sure you get as much guaranteed damage as possible and go for the ground, right? I think that makes it really fun. And also, when you hit one of those clutch direct hits and like save someone's life, it feels really good because you just get like, you get rewarded for hitting this super skillful shot. I think it's a really great change, and I think BAP has like, basically he's become so much more fun, especially as someone who had to play BAP on my collegiate team. He became so much more fun when this change was added. Absolutely great. Again, an Overwatch 1 change that you might not have known about. Speaking of healing differences, let's talk about Irelia. Now, obviously, this is an Overwatch 2 change. I have talked about this a little in the past, so I don't want to get on it too much, but I am really not that much of a fan of Pylon healing allies more than it heals Irelia. The reason being is that it enables Illyari's DPS pocket playstyle. Now, Irelia is honestly a better DPS than most hit scans, if we're being frankly honest, but we're going to take her current balance out of it, right? It does 40 to allies, and it only does 20 for yourself. And I thought the fun thing about Irelia was trying to figure out when it was best used on allies and best used on yourself. Now it is just kind of like, well, you have your own burst, and it's going to give you 20 per burst, and if you're getting hit by a DPS, it's going to give you even less because of the passive. 16, I think it would end up being. That's just not worth it, right? And so I'm just going to give it to anybody else and pocket them and make sure they're never ever going to die. And I think that just makes the gameplay much more, or the game plan for Pylon, much more linear. And frankly, again, just not as fun. Now, Irelia, I think, has a myriad of design problems. I am not a super big fan of how her kit's shaped up, but it is fun to enable yourself, even on a support, to do a lot of damage. And just kind of not being able to do that. Again, she does a lot of damage. I understand that's her current balance. I'm just saying, in theory, right? It's just better to give that to teammates to heal up. So I'm not a super big fan of that one. I think Irelia should have to think more about when she gives it to allies and when she gives it to herself. Okay. Let's talk about a contentious guy, Ratra. Ratra has an ult that when it came out, again, if you're newer, if you didn't play right when Ratra came out, Ravenous Vortex didn't end. Well, okay, it basically, you know, now Ravenous Vortex has a 3-second timer. I'll show you, right? 1, 2, 1, over, right? That's when it didn't hit anybody. If you're hitting somebody the entire time, and I'm not going to show you because it takes a million years, it'll stay up for 20 seconds. So basically, your Ravenous Vortex nowadays either takes 3 seconds to 20 seconds. That is how long it will be. You always know it will be over by then, right? Before that, the timer tick down completely stopped when you were touching people. So you could have situations where Ratra could have this ult up for a super long time. 2 Ramatras could block at each other, and they were just unkillable, and you couldn't get anywhere near them because of Ravenous Vortex. Now, because of this change where it always constantly ticks down, I think this makes using Ravenous Vortex really like much more engaging, but also the counterplay to it is much better, because even if you only block 2 seconds for 2 seconds, let's say with a Rhine Shield or something, and he gets on your backline, he's only going to be able to be there for like what, 7.5 seconds at most. You might be able to boop him out and get some more out of it, right? Now with the tank knockback changes, I think it's, you know, a little more skewed in his favor, and I don't really like that so much. But I think it's much more fun to be like, okay, you know, like, okay, I got to get back in, right? Like, you kind of have to encourage like getting as much value out of Ravenous Vortex as possible. I think it is a much better version of the ult. Now, again, you can hate Ravenous Vortex, sure, but I think at least making this ult much more engaging and interactive for both sides, it's a great change. I really do like it. Okay. Next up, we have kind of a blanket one, but I'm going to talk about Ana because of it. So, I am not a big fan of when the game readability is very low. Or if it's like really hard to learn the game, it's like, okay, this interaction does this, you know, like, and every time this happens, this will happen, right? That is kind of like the core of making a game feel good, make it easy to pick up. But for whatever reason, Ana's Sleep Dart only sleeps tanks for 3 seconds instead of 5 seconds. I don't like any of these abilities that bypass some of these, like Winston doing true damage to armor, Queen pulling more. Apparently Ilyari just does full headshot damage to tanks. I don't know if that's a bug or not. But I'm really not a fan of this. I understand that tanks are kind of like, I honestly don't think tanks are like, what's it called? Disproportionately hit by sleep. I mean, they're going to be hit by sleep dart more often, but they're not they're disproportionately affected by it. Basically what I mean is that when you sleep dart a tank, they have so much more health, and that is like, depending, in theory, you know, it's supposed to be less of a mistake, right? If I sleep dart this guy, that's way more health gone than if I sleep dart that guy and did the same thing, right? That's kind of like the idea. In my opinion, I just understand that it's like the sleep dart just hits tanks more because they're bigger, and that's why it has to be lower. I don't like that. I just don't like the fact that sleep dart and other abilities like that just kind of have their own rules that just make the game harder to read, harder to understand, and it just doesn't feel good. Like, I did hit a sleep dart, but the reward is just so much less for the Ana. It's like, why is it even worth it? I'm getting dove by a Doomfist. Is it even worth it for me to sleep him? He's going to be on my ass again in like literally at least 3 seconds, if not more. Sorry, at most 3 seconds, if not more. So I'm not a big fan of it. I get the theory, but I don't think it worked out very well. Okay, another good one. This is from Overwatch 2. Sorry, not Overwatch 2. This is from Overwatch 1. If you're a new player and you've seen Tracer, you may not know that this was even a thing ever, and you would think that it's kind of weird that it kind of took so long to implement it. So I'm going to show you something right here. You see this ledge? Okay, we're going to look at the tank bot. This ledge and this ledge are not at the same height, right? If I go here, I did jump, but I can get over the ledge, right? I'm not at the same height, but I can get over the ledge. That's because there's a little bit of an, kind of like a grace area where it will slide you over. It just makes Tracer feel really good. It's just a nice quality of life thing. Believe it or not, this was not always in the game. You would come here and just bonk into ledges. Like, if your feet didn't touch it, sorry, so sorry. You're just not going to get up there, right? It is crazy to me that this character launched without that. I mean, it feels so good. It just feels so natural. But yeah, that was one of the best changes they made to Tracer. It just makes her feel more fluid. It makes her just feel better overall. It opens up more options to her. There are places that she wouldn't have been able to get to without using maybe multiple blinks, stuff like that. Now she has much more to work with. I think it's really good when changes give characters more options that don't necessarily make them super broken, right? It's just like allowing Tracer to move very slightly vertically in some situations, right? It's much more niche, but super useful. Okay, let's talk about a bad. I'm gonna go over to Mei here. This is an Overwatch 2 change. I'm specifically gonna talk about her primary. Now, you may know from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, Mei lost her freeze, right? She used to, her ult freezes now, but she used to be able to do that on her left click. And she would do this, and they would freeze, pretend he's frozen, and you hit them with an icicle to the head, and they die, right? Now, she just does a slow, and it does more damage. But there was a time that Mei actually had a different status effect called Chill. I think it was called Chill. And basically, it was the same thing. You hit them for a little bit, and then they would get chilled. And then when you icicled them, it would do, it would do extra damage, right? You would do like a pop of damage when you got the icicle off. This was removed very quickly because people found this really frustrating, because the chill also made them, what's it called? Super slow. It was like 85% slow. So it was basically like freeze. Thing about hinder now, it's kind of like the hinder equivalent to freeze. I really like chill. I'm going to say it, okay? I thought it was a nice compromise to bring back Mei's mini game plan, where she wanted, I think Mei lost something in the move from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, and I really would appreciate if, maybe there was something we could bring back to make Mei feel better again. Another thing, instead of just holding left click and doing a lot of damage, I would be okay if the chill came back and the slow was like barely anything. Maybe it doesn't even have an extra slow on it. Maybe you should just try and hit it while you have this regular like 30% slow. I think that would end up being much more engaging for Mei, and also again like bring back more of that, because at close range, let's be real, Mei is not a threat. She does not do that much damage over time to really be a threat at close range. If you gave her that burst that basically says like, hey, get away from me because I might be able to kill you, not as effectively, right? A little more skillfully, I guess. That would be much more fun, and I really think that Mei would benefit from it, and it would probably make her a little better, just give her some nice burst damage, but there's a big caveat. You can't do it at range, right? Anything like that, I think that would really help. It doesn't have to one-shot. If you get a headshot, I think that's fine. It could literally just increase your multiplier for Icicle by like 1.1. I don't care. Anything like that. Just a little more to her. Okay, and the final good one I've got here, Cassidy. This is one of the most recent changes. It's his ult changes. I thought that there was no way that they could make this ult interesting, but the increasing of the increased speed, but also decreased durability, damage resistance rather, actually makes High Noon really, really fun to use, because now when the High Noon comes out, he could be kind of like whipping around corners and stuff like that. Even if he doesn't see you the whole time, he might like get a good pot shot on you, but it makes it super risky to go for this because he doesn't have that damage reduction anymore, so he's just kind of standing still. Even though he's going faster, he's still much more susceptible because he can't AD strafe or anything like that. It just makes this ult more fun, and it makes it a better zoning tool and a better killing tool, to be honest with you. I think it's great both ways. Again, it's higher risk but higher reward options, and keeping that old cast style of like, I'm not gonna go for the risky play, I'm just gonna like stay in the back line and keep myself alive. It's good, and I think it is still decently counterplayable. You can stun him out of it. You can boop him. He doesn't have knockback resistance or anything like that. Don't worry. So I don't think it was like an overbearing change, and it made a pretty bad ult become like a decently fun to use ult. I think it's really good. And we're gonna end on a bad. Honestly, I didn't really mean to end on a bad. I just kind of made this improperly. We're gonna talk about Roadhog. This is not about his rework. This is about a change that they made very early on, I believe in Overwatch 2, but I can't remember at this point. But it's a pretty old change at this point. It's about his ultimate. It is no longer an install. It is an install, is what I should say. It's a transformational. Basically what this means is that in the middle of whole Hog can use all of his abilities, and he can, choose when he shoots, right? The reason I don't like this is because I think Whole Hog is a really unfun, frankly uncounterable ult if you're a tank. It's really, really hard to get around Whole Hog. It's like the tank deleter, especially, if he gets a good hook, or sometimes if you're just trying to play closer, you're forced to go on point, he can just Whole Hog you into a corner. There's nothing you can do. No amount of, in fact, it's worse because tank knockback resistance actually makes the damage that this ult does much more. Now, I do understand that it's a good quality of life change to be able to use some of his abilities, specifically Breather, but I don't want him to be able to use all of his abilities. I think it is just like, I don't like agree with the fact that he should just be able to do everything all at once. Like, Winston can't use his, Tesla cannon. He is a completely different, like, he has jump and it's on a lower cooldown, but he can't use his bubble, and he doesn't use his Tesla cannon or his primary or his secondary fire. Like, he loses stuff when he installs. Hog doesn't. He just becomes like an objectively better character, and I just wish that he would at least just be able to get stunned out of it. I think it's okay if he can use all his abilities, sure, but I think you should be able to stun him out of it. Maybe you only if he's shooting the gun, or like he's not using his breather actively, that's the only time you could stun him, something like that. But to me, it just feels like, okay, I stunned Hog, or like I tried to do something with Hog, and then he just like goes right back to what he was doing, right? There's nothing I can do, right? If I abduct an Ori and she spears me, I can just continue. There's nothing more. The counterplay was just don't get hit forehead, right? It's just kind of boring. I understand that, again, quality of life, this will probably not happen, but any way to just minimize how much, maybe just give him ammo, right? Maybe give him ammo for his left click, that he has to be really thoughtful with how he uses it. That could be more interesting. I'm not sure, but yeah, that is it for this video. I'm just going to give you a quick outro here. Let me know what you guys think about these changes. What's good, what's bad? What are some that you thought? There were a couple of a lot more good changes that I was trying to think of. And again, I didn't want to put any like system changes or anything like that, although I have a lot of problems with passives and the tank stuff. But that's kind of barking up a different tree. Also, again, there were some changes that were removed. The Sigma change where it broke, or you didn't need LOS for Flux, definitely would have been on here had it not been removed. So I didn't want to include anything that wasn't on the current Overwatch patch. But yeah, leave a comment, like, and subscribe while you're at it. This was streamed live at twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. That's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Always something to talk to me about. And also, join my Discord if you have any hot takes, rework ideas, anything like that. I love to hear them. Got a little community in there as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.